And we don't need the business to work. We want the business to work. We don't need each other. We want each other to work. And that's probably a really great reflection that I just heard from you in that area, that that makes us come back to each other and come back to that center.
Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems, and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Alright guys, welcome to Uncovered. I'm really excited to have two people here that I met a very long time ago. I can't remember when it was. You found me somehow through somebody and ended up on my healing table. And you've gone on a journey. It was really interesting. I met you both years and years ago in a group called Black Belt. And I remember something that you said to me, Beck, how the hell are you going to be able to do anything with what you know? And then you said everything you told me was absolutely correct, what my pathway was when I was giving you some information on my table. So welcome, Ed and Beck. Thanks for jumping on to Uncovered.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I love all that detail packed into there, Jason. So much detail of dates and times. I don't know when it was.
We met sometime through someone in some place.
Yeah. When was it? When was it that we met?
It must be over a decade ago.
2009-ish.
It probably is about 13 years ago because, I don't know whether we were just navigating relationship at that kind of time, starting to kind of get together. And yeah, we've been married 10 years this year. So, and we've been together for over 13. So it must be that long, Jason.
And it was in Canberra.
It was in Canberra when
we left Canberra in 2010. So it was well before that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And it was really interesting because I remember, Beck, you talking to me, there's this guy, Ed, and I hadn't met Ed yet. And, we were talking about, relationships and connection and all of those things, and you run a business together. So I'd love to know, where your journey's been and, what do you do? So let the listeners know sort of what you actually do for a crust, where it all started and what made you decide to create a business together.
That's a big question.
Well, let's start with what we do now.
Grab a cup of coffee and brace yourselves in.
What we do right now is we teach people how to grow and make money from their network, basically.
Just for anyone listening, you'll get that Beck is completely opposite to me in everything we do. So I would have started where Jason was talking about where we first met, but Beck's gone straight to the end and sharing where we are now. So keep going.
So we work with people around networking skills, and we have a system that they can pretty much learn, pick up, and then put on repeat inside of their own business so that they can learn how to network in a modern way. So it's not just about the old way of going to an event, meeting some people, going to your local RSL every week, handing in pieces of paper, and using those old systems, which have a place and work. This is kind of adapting them to have a new way of doing things where they can use virtual platforms and tools, as well as using your old school methods to make sales, get conversation going, create community, and make clients and collaborations. So that's what we do now, but it hasn't always been that way. So when we first met you, Jace, I was working for a non-profit organisation in corporate communications, PR and communications in the ACT. And what were you doing?
I was still in the army. I was getting towards my 17th year or 16th year in the army. and was still, doing other stuff, I suppose. But very soon, I don't know whether it was when we met or just before we met, I left the army. Beck left your job. We did that. We just started dating. Where do we start?
It's probably a really good catalyst, like a story to talk about the catalyst that got you to leave military, because in this forum it would be a great conversation about.
Yeah, so tell us, why did you leave, Ed? What happened? Like, we're looking at, it's really interesting because you just said exactly the army way. We have a structure here, Beck. We start from 1 to 10, and you just went from 10 to 1. What the fuck are you doing? So hilarious.
Journalist to tell the story, Jason. I'll tell the story and I'll just ask the questions.
So I think I'd been going through a pretty emotional time with I separated from my first wife. My dad had got terminal cancer and passed away. I passed away 12 months before. I moved to Canberra. Beck is the sister of a friend of mine who I joined the army with, and her husband is one of my good mates. So we knew each other, and Beck reached out and said, do you want to live together?
I got army supplements, so I knew that it was going to be like a cheap wage for me. So I was like, yes, I'm going to get cheap rent.
Fantastic. Well done, Beck. Good choice.
And that was a big decision for me to move in with someone who was always going to be a friend because of that relationship that I had with family. But soon after that, and during that period, I realized that I'd poured 17 years into the army. I'd worked hard. I'd done the traditional dream of do well at school, go to university, get a good job. I had a job that was committed to me till I was 55 years old. That was my contract with the army. And buy a house, have kids and get married and all that sort of stuff. And I'd sort of got to the get married bit and realized that it was all crap and my world had imploded. I got divorced and my dad passed away and all of these other people's metrics had become irrelevant and I was still unhappy. I ballooned out to 115 kilos and the job in Canberra allowed me to sort of take stock of where I was. And I went on a big journey of going, what do I really want? And for the first time in my life, just asking myself that. And as part of that, there were some big lines in the sand for why I left the army. One of them was my values I felt were being questioned by what the army was expecting me to do. And there was a value misalignment there. So I wasn't comfortable with that. And I knew the path ahead for the next 15 years was them wanting more out of me than I was willing to give because I'd given a lot and not received a lot in return. And I went, nah, this is enough. And as part of that journey of working out what I want, I didn't know what I wanted to do after the army, but I just decided to leave and left. And then Beck became another thing that I wanted.
Well, I think we were coming together anyway, and I think moving in as flatmates, it creates a new relationship. Obviously, you become very close, intimate, you see people. There's a lot of time spent around talking, and Ed and I, because we were both experiencing some pretty significant life shifts at that time. I'd spent 3 years living in the UK and came back and was starting to experience quite high levels of anxiety and just a lack of purpose and focus, and probably taken too many drugs and drunk too much alcohol and killed my nervous system and my mind while I lived abroad, and then I had to come back and really recover from that. So we were both going through this recovery phase as we were coming together, and you know, as part of that process, it was great because we had each other to talk to and soundboard off of as friends. And then as those things happen, of course, friends often fall in love because they respect each other and, you know, can resonate with the journey. So that's how it all happened. But it was actually a movie that got you to really start questioning whether or not you were on the right path, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Becca took me on our 6-month date to watch a movie called Ballabo, which is about the 5 Australian journalists who went into East Timor when the Indonesians were coming through and just killing all the Timorese.
So I was interested in
1970s.
Yeah, I was interested in that because my first career was as a journalist, and I was knew that story and was really interested to see it told in the cinema.
Yep.
And so I dragged it along there, not knowing it was actually going to be a life-changing moment for Edward.
And so during that, the story is that the Australian government knew about it, but wouldn't send any military over to intervene and save lives because of the political repercussions with Indonesia, Australia, no support from America, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
And I just went, ethically, as somebody that is trained to do something, not being able to do it because politically it's not okay and it risks human lives and it's just not the right thing to do. I went, I'm not okay with that. And that movie made me realise that the government would continue to do that because they're political beasts wanting the next vote, all of that. And the higher up in the ranks I got, the closer I was to just having to follow the letter of the law and not have the freedom to do it my way.
And that must be really challenging. You know, we go into something that we have a motive and a want and a desire to do the right thing, and then we realise that it's all a lie. That must have been really, really hard for you, Ed.
Yeah, totally. And the indoctrination the military does to get you to believe that. Like, bottom line, they teach you to want to go to war to get shot at. Like, it's not a normal path.
No.
It doesn't make sense in the safety of your room that, let's shoot at me. And so that belief, that loyalty, that honour, that esprit de corps is ingrained in us every step of the way. And realising that it was questioning my values and their values was a really tough thing to do.
Yeah, I hear you. And I remember working with you. I had a period of time where I had just a spate of people coming from the Army to come and see me, Army, Air Force, for a period of time. And it was really interesting to see how locked in your brains were to rules and regimented. And I remember you melting down with me because you didn't know how to cope with your mental psyche because it was starting to break. And it's so nice when, you know, two people come together broken in some way and meet each other and find a way forward together. And I'm sure that you guys have had, you know, challenges along the way through your breakthroughs, because I think when we're in a partnership, you know, you run a business together and it's challenging to know how to separate, you know, when we're going through our breakdowns in, you know, something like the Army where you had to break down your whole human psyche, Ed. And then you're going into a relationship to figure out how to do this together as well, and then in business. So tell me a bit about what that sort of looks like for you guys now, like having, you know, that process of, you know, coming together, not feeling, you know, that you could sort each other out. You did come and see me for a period of time way back when I was being Healer Me, and then going through that process of, you know, looking at life and wanting to make a difference, because that's what I see you both doing. You wanting to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, it's interesting. I look back on that time and I sort of think in some respects it was, and this might be just me being jaded, but it was easier than sometimes of what it is now, because we were both really vulnerable, raw, new to relationship. There was no legacy, history. We were able to be really open and we sort of supported each other finding our feet, and it was amazing, and I was really blessed to do that with Beck.
Yeah.
Now though, the challenges come up, and it's that reevaluating our new relationship and what it needs to look like, and then running a business together, there's stresses on that, and then there's the adding kids, and you go through the different stages of the kids' life in relation to the business life and in relation to what we need and want as well. And it's how do you fit all of that in and still make each other a priority. And I think I struggle with putting everyone else as a priority first before our relationship. and sometimes before myself as well. And that's been a real challenge in our relationship as we've evolved and grown.
Yeah. So how's it been for you, Beck?
I think that one of the blessings that we have inside of our relationship is a willingness to talk about things. And I don't know if Ed had ever experienced that before coming into a relationship with me, but I'm not a person who likes to leave something undiscussed. It's probably the big difference in the way that we approach things. I'm just all in, this is how you get me, emotion on my sleeve. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell you so, which has its benefits. It also has its not so benefits all the time. But I think that's matured inside of myself as we've certainly gone along and as I've aged and become a little bit more wise on how to use that. But there's always been a willingness between the two of us to communicate whatever's going on. It's been probably the main promise that we've always come to inside of everything that we've done, that if there's a problem, we raise our hand. It's not, we don't go elsewhere to bring that problem to the fore and look for solutions. The first place is that we have to raise it with one another, bring it up for attention and then move it on. And that's been a really helpful skill and a helpful promise for us in both areas of our relationship. And probably for me, I think the hardest thing that I've had to do is exercise patience with Edward and compassion. And he's taught me a lot of that. He's taught me a lot about how to be more compassionate and how to be more patient. As I put,
you are recording this, aren't you, Joseph?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Just a little bit again later.
Yeah, don't worry. You can record this little snippet and then just keep playing it over and over again to Beck.
4-minute mark.
And at some point he's going to say I'm right, and I'm going to get that part just on his ringtone every time he says that. But I do exercise a lot more compassion for Edward because he does come from a military background. And I think I also experience, we have all these different layers of ourselves that we bring to relationship, and Ed's upbringing was vastly different to mine. Mine taught me a lot of resourcefulness. It taught me a lot of independence. It taught me a lot about networking. It taught a lot about community and surrounding yourself with that, because, you know, that's what my youth taught me. And it also taught me a lot about transparency and honesty and communication. And Ed maybe didn't have that same experience growing up. And so I have been able to exercise more compassion with that in understanding that way of thinking. And I think that's a great tool in our relationship that I've been able to uncover because of Ed and who he is, because he's a generous, thoughtful, considerate person. And I feel like in some way his 17 years in the military actually really beat that out of him, and conditioned him to think in particular ways and like follow the structure. And it's that level of compassion that I'm like, I know he's coming at this with a heart, but he just doesn't see how to do things. And sometimes it's just, I've had to learn to step back a little bit and kind of just wait for the penny to drop, or like for that moment for him to grasp it. And I guess from my own personal, what that's brought for me is just allowing me to go, okay, well, I'm committed to this relationship and I'm committed to Edward and I'm willing to sit with that, and I'm incredibly loyal to him, so therefore I'm willing to wait. And I think that's something I didn't necessarily think about myself and wouldn't have given myself credit for, that our relationship with Edward and watching him experience his life while I've been experiencing mine has brought me to.
Yeah, and I think this is really, really important. Like for relationships, quite often what we want subconsciously is we want our needs to be met by the other person. We run a lot of projections, right? And I've seen this a lot of the time from being working as a master of helping people in relationships for a very, very long period of time now. That we do these subconscious projections, and patience is actually a virtue that it goes missing a lot of the time. We don't have enough patience with each other. You know, both of you guys come at different angles in the way that you communicate, and it's to understand each other's angles is so important to learn to be able to do. You know, and that's what a really good relationship and a bond does, is that when you have that commitment, it creates something that allows diversity. And, you know, I look at Anya and I, how we mentor, right? Anya is really mental and I'm really spatial, right? So I'm really big picture. I can see beyond what other people can see. And I take people to that journey, and Anya's like a laser. We mentor so differently. And it's so cool to actually have a different way of approaching and a different philosophy. And if you don't try to train the other person to be different, you bring stuff together and make stuff work. And so I'd love to know, you know, how you guys work in your business. Like how does it work when you're working with, you know, two different philosophies, two different approaches to give your value to your clients when you're helping them grow their businesses, because that's what you do.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we're both better business people because of having each other to bounce things off. And I often say I never experienced watching someone work together as a team as a young person, and I feel like we're such a great team in how we approach everything because we are opposite. It's excellent. I don't really coach anymore inside of our organisation. My job is to run the organisation, I kind of do strategy and system, and then also community engagement and marketing aspects. So I'm like that. Like you, Jace, I think spatially, and I'm about taking people on journeys, and I want people to feel good. But I also only ever want to do something once, and if it needs to be done again, I'm out. So it's like I'm great at building the team for that, and identifying where something might be falling over because one of us is a block in it. And I'm also really great at removing things from Edward by building teams around him. Like I love that actually my job's really to build a business around Ed so he can do what he loves, which is to coach people. And so Ed's job really is to coach the clients and also to look at converting them too. So if they come through me and I go, they're a good fit, then I'll let them have the conversation with Edward and he'll decide whether he wants to work with them or not. So it's kind of, it's like I put the frame around and the boundaries around take what Ed wants to do and put the frame and the boundaries around it, and then keep people away so he can do more of what he likes, is my job. What would you say your job is?
I think the way that it works for us is we've gone on a journey. Like we've been running a business together for 10 years now, and it's that continual assessment of what each of us are doing in the business.
Roles are coming up as a
and moving with that. Like our roles have changed again in the last 6 weeks and they'll change again probably in the next couple of weeks. And it's that rapid ability to change, but in the same token, really understanding the lanes that the other person's running in so that they can run faster and how we can help each other do that. So Beck does an amazing job of team and structure and that getting things done more than once without her ever having to do it again.
Yeah, that's amazing, love. Like to have that trade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I love it because I can see that bigger picture. I can see all the steps, and that's one of my areas of genius. I can see all the steps, forecast what it's going to look like, and fill in the gaps, and then just pass it off.
And so Beck says she doesn't coach, but what she does is with our top tier clients or our higher value clients, those ones that are really invested in their growth, she'll drop in and spend 10, 15 minutes with them and just cut through everything and that sort of. And she just has amazing success and position to be able to get those clients the breakthrough that they need really quickly to facilitate them moving on. So she does do a bit of it, but she doesn't want any of the accountability, long-term coaching or business support that is traditional out there. Yeah. And so my role, I think, is what you've said in around that coaching. And I'm a relationships guy. Like I love... It's funny, I don't like going to a big event and speaking to heaps of people and mingling, but I love getting to know people and building a relationship with them. and that's part of what networking is. And so my role in the business is really take people on a relationship journey to help them win more in their business. And we do that. There's a sales function of it, and then there's a coaching program, training support of it. And one of the things the Army helped me do was I ran a lot of courses in the Army and developed a lot. And it's taking that structural component and then making it simple to understand and throwing it out there for other people in that networking business growth space, which is exciting.
What's coming up for me now, though, is you talked about change before and how much we change inside of our business. And one of the things that you often talk about that frightens you is change. And if we reflect now on how much this past 2 years we've had to adapt and create change inside of our family unit, in our roles inside of our family unit, and then our roles inside of the business, it's been significant.
Yeah.
And I think you should honour like that inside of yourself of how much you've actually done it.
Yeah, and it's the ease of change and my perspective on change is relevant to where I am today. So today, business is going really well, having a lot of fun. We've got some adventures planned. Life's really good. Change, it's easy. We just do and adapt it. Get me in the middle of it when it's hard and the backs are against the wall and that, and it's a lot more tougher and having to deal with that. But we've had to deal with a lot of that in the last, you say 2 years, but probably 10 years.
It's felt on fast forward on acceleration, like a roller coaster in the last 2 years, especially even the last 12 months has been a bit crazy. Just continually the last 12 days. So it's been just a continuous roller coaster. But I think that the cool thing about working alongside each other in it is that we are both really goal-driven, achievement-oriented individuals. And that's beautiful that we can find that pair, or my mate, who also wants to do that. They also want to do that, but it's great that we can contribute it together. That also helps us achieve the goals and achievements that we want to have for our family unit. And then, so that part's probably the easy part. And the hardest part is coming back to being together and being able to change the roles again inside of the family unit. And just as we even become more of ourselves and adapt to that, and as we change and embody ourselves more and more and more, it's looking at those functional roles inside of our family unit too, and then adapting what we know in the business works, which is just what's the situation and where do our geniuses lie, and bringing that home into the house. And like, just, you know, one of the things I say to Ed is like, sometimes I just have to take a break, because holding space for all of you boys gets really tiring sometimes, because there's Ed, and then I've got 2 sons, and we have a boy dog as well, which is just a crazy thing. But there's just so much masculine energy in there. And I really, because I spend so much time in that achievement driven stuff in work, I do find myself even really having to take I call it dropping into, because for me that's what it feels like. It feels like I've been up here all day, and I have to just come into here, into my body, to adjust to the needs of my young men. And I think even in that adaptation, that's a daily adaptation that has to happen for me to achieve in that role like I want to. And that takes the support of Ed, and also, you know, constant recognition of, I've got to let you do more in that, you know, that area. And he's like, I've got to do more in here. And it just feels like it's a constant conversation and a constant level of adaptation, Jason, to do life.
Yeah, and this is what's really, really important here, guys, is that you guys are in a conscious relationship where you've got to do something different consistently. And I don't think people understand, people in business, for a start, what they have to go through to keep the business going and how to adapt, especially because we've had this amazing, crazy time over the last couple of years that everyone who has been in business has either fallen away or they've had to adapt really quick and move. And then we have all of these functions that we run, right? We've got the dad, we've got the mum, we've got the relationship, we've got the business, we've got to figure out how we do our clients well, and we're not going to get it right every time. So when you think about business, and I hear this a lot of the time, 90% of the things that we try fail, and 10% of the things that we try actually work, right? And it's pretty common in business. So how have you guys handled the things that haven't worked in your relationship or in your business? How do you handle those things behind closed doors? How does it work for you guys?
It's really challenging, and one of the reasons it's so challenging is we're both really passionate, and that passion comes to the front in those moments, and it shifts between passion and anger quite quickly.
Yeah.
Which makes it really explosive when we're going through those periods. I think
not to mention you're an Aries and I'm a Scorpio, so like
okay.
We've got all of these.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've got red hair. I'm not fiery.
Coming at us.
And I think when we don't do it well, we're avoiding it. We're just getting in and getting things done, and we're not communicating and we're not connecting. When we do it well, we're taking time to have a 10-minute cup of tea. We're talking about stuff, and we're together in it. And I think blokes maybe, but me, I got trained to get in and get things done. That's in the army. How do you deal with stress? You move on to the next objective. You keep moving forward. Otherwise, if you don't, you die. And it's that whole life approach that is a hindrance when you're changing rapidly. So it's being able to move away from that, and sometimes I'm not very good at it, and Beck really helps take a stop and go, hey, this is really breaking or broken.
Yeah.
We need to stop just shouldering on and have a look. What do we want? What do we need?
Yeah.
Work together.
Yeah, I think that when the biggest thing that comes up for challenges is just looking at what's breaking and that's a time for us to stop and see, are we still in alignment with ourselves? Because I find often when things are breaking, that's an opportunity in the business. It's an opportunity to say, well, where are we not in flow and where are we not in alignment? And often it's coming back to, what Ed's expectations of something are versus my expectations of something, and where we both think the next step is, because as soon as we do that, it seems to diffuse that challenge anyway, and then we can go, okay, well, that's where it's not working. Cool, we just need to come back to this step and rejig this bit, try this, and then go again. And I think that comes from me, from having worked, like being a semi-professional athlete as well, because I've got that ability to kind of stop, look, and do it. That's working, that's not working. What do I need to change in order to get the ball faster? So there's that kind of mentality that I can bring to our game. So when we have challenges, it's definitely, it can get explosive and we can get disconnected. And as soon as we stop communicating, we stop connecting. And as soon as we stop connecting, the intimacy falls away. So it's just got to be, I just find there's a constant dedication to knowing, for Ed and I, well, we've made that promise to communicate. We've also made the promise inside of our business that never will the business be the thing that comes between us. So there's no use in having a business and having this lifestyle where we can go and adventure and do all these things if we don't have each other to do it with.
Yeah. That's a really important aspect. Like, when you've got two fiery people, right, it can actually turn into a bonfire and a real struggle. So there's Anya and I, like, we're very different. I'm very it's like the opposite to what you expect. I'm really watery, so really feminine, and Anya's really fiery, really masculine. You both come in really masculine, right, to an environment. And sometimes that can work and sometimes it doesn't. And what I'm hearing is that making sure you do your resets.
Definitely. The resets are really important. And I think the longer we've gone on making that conscious decision to do it, the faster we get at picking them up, which means the quicker we can move in our business, and the more things arrive to us, and the quicker, the next stage is there. And when they're like, okay, what's the next stage? Because without the conscious decision to go, this is our commitment to each other, these are things that are important to us, I'm not receiving this from you right now, you're not receiving this from me, cool, let's make them a priority again, and then we can do that. So that those, we don't fall off the wagon for as long in relationship before it's safe to do it. But it's taken practice, Jason. Like this, our way of dealing with it now in the challenges is vastly different to what it was 5 years ago, vastly different to what it was 2 years ago. And I remember in the early stages of motherhood and running the business together, for me, I was like, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you can swear.
I was like, fuck it, I'm out. Like I'm not working in this anymore. It's too hard. It's taking too much of a toll on our relationship. I'm out. And so my default to run away from the problem continually arose. And it was just like, no, too hard, I'm out. And Ed's was like, I'm just going to keep plowing. So we really, okay, well, neither of us really wants to do it on our own. And we're committed to doing a team, so we have to find the way. And it has been, we should give ourselves a high five for that, looking at that from that time and seeing how different it is to the way in which we approach things now and can overcome the challenge.
Yeah.
I still remember the conversation we had when we started business together that was around is if it all fails and we're living in a tent somewhere, it doesn't matter where we're living as long as we've got each other. And while it's a easy thing to say, I believe that we've both embodied that and lived it. And when it comes to big business decisions, like even 12, 18 months ago, big business decisions where we're significantly changing everything and could lose everything, it's we're better to lose it and make our life better than to continue on it. And if we lose everything, we've at least got a tent and you and me.
And our kids.
So,
the dog.
Just a bigger tent now.
Yeah, that's it. Now, look, I think that's a great attitude to have, because a lot of people don't do a good job of what you're doing right now, right? It's a big struggle to have your hand in the cookie jar of everything, right? You're parenting, you're running a business together, you're trying to keep your relationship flowing, and from what I'm hearing, things have not always been good. And look, I think this is really important, listeners, to understand, is that my relationship with my wife has been on thin ice sometimes, and it's only through collaborative conversations to work on that hard stuff. And these are the things that people don't really share. We don't really share our difficulties and our struggles. We just share our wins as leaders. And from what I'm hearing, I'm really appreciative of the two of you being so transparent and honest around the struggles, because there are hard times and you do battle your relationships. The intimacy drops, and it rises again, and then you have to reset. You have to figure out what you're doing. You have to figure out what you truly want. And this is a constant. And I think from what I'm hearing with you two is that your commitment to be in a tent shows your commitment to your clients, right? That you're willing to do anything to make something work. And I love what I'm hearing right now from the two of you, because it's really interesting to see your body language. You started talking about stuff, and then Beck, you came in, you wrapped your arm around your hubs, and I could feel this as you were talking, the bond getting stronger through, talking about what you've gone through and what you're willing to do for each other. And and it's not always easy, is it?
It's not. And we celebrated 10 years marriage this year, and that was quite a rocky lead up to it, because for me, it's before Ed, I wouldn't even commit to a phone plan, Jason. It was just like, I was like, no commitment. I'm not doing that. And so to agree.
It was a 3110 though as well. Like, who commits to a 3110?
Was it a 6110, like the old Nokia? It was. Commitment for me was hard because of all the baggage I was bringing to that. And Ed made it seem like something that I could do, and then was actually able to show me areas of my life that I had committed to. Like I'm a dual state netball representative and had been when I met him, and that takes commitment. And I think that sometimes we don't see ourselves, and that's why it's great to have such an excellent mirror like Ed, because he sees that for me and then reflects it back, and I can then see that in myself. But when it came to 10 years, it was like, okay, well, this is a big decade. We've started a business. We've had 2 children. We've bought a house. We've, done, and we've been married for 10 years. And I'm for me, coming up to the wedding anniversary, I was like, well, I'm not just going to be one of those people that ticks over the years. If I'm committing to something, I'm committing to it for the next 10 years. So what does that look like for us? And we've really had to dig deep to come together again on that, to go, okay, well, this is what we want it to look like, and these are the ways that we're willing to learn and grow and change inside of ourselves to make that a reality.
That's fantastic. And it's so good that you've got this teamwork. Go on, Ed, what were you going to say?
And I think the digging deep has been recently, in the last year or two. And I think one of the things that we've both done in that process is not cling to making it work, but nearly releasing each other to find what was the most important thing for them. And in that, trusting that if we're meant to be together, we'll find each other and be together in that, instead of going, I need our relationship to work and I need to do everything to make it work for you, or whatever that is. And it's that's been really powerful for us, is that letting each other sort of go and grow, and in that process refinding our relationship.
I think that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like I often say, Ed will, every time I get him to open a jar, he's like, yes, because he knows that I still need him to open my jars. It's the only thing I've got. But really, I don't need him for everything else. And it's a conscious choice that I make to want him in my life every day, because I know that I could make my own money. I know that I could,
never buy jars again.
I could just not buy jars. And it's, there's lots of other things, but it is about that. For us, we don't need the business to work. We want the business to work. We don't need each other. We want each other to work. And that's probably a really great reflection that I just heard from you in that area, that that makes us come back to each other and come back to that center to say, yes, let's book in that time in our calendar once a month where we don't take anything while the kids are at school, and go and have some time together, go to a bathhouse or for lunch or a massage or whatever it is, because we might move slower in our business than maybe someone else who's been doing it for as long as we have or whatever. But I feel like it's been necessary for us to stay together and connected in as the unit that we are. And I think now that we've come to this place where we can be in this place of want versus need, it will allow us to continue to attract and manifest for ourselves and our clients the realities that they want.
Yeah, and I love this transition, because quite often I was just talking to Anya about this, the needs and the wants last night, how we do what we do, and when we break through from an empty bucket is a need, a full bucket's a want, right? And so when we're placing ourselves with the opportunity to create wants, then our business becomes more of a flow. And as you know, in business, we don't always just skyrocket upwards. Income drops, it rises. That's normal part of the human condition with business. That when we do it with a want base, when we do have those hard times, we can go into that neediness again subconsciously. But we've got an attitude difference. And this is what I'm loving hearing from the two of you guys, is that your attitudes are second to none. And what I want to point out to you listeners is that they're talking about a 10-year business here. 90% of businesses are gone within 10 years. So you're actually really, really successful business owners, right? Because you're a dinosaur in business world, right? That's the truth. You're both dinosaurs in the way that business is running right now. And it doesn't matter. Look, I don't believe success is meant to be hinged on money. It's meant to be hinged on this attitude that I'm hearing from the two of you. And we are so broken baseline around a financial status that builds our success. I would rather have your two lives and have what you're doing and your attitudes than the chess beaters are saying, look at me, I've got 8 figures and my life is completely fucked, but I don't want to let anyone know what's going on the back end. Because this is what we notice, and you would know this from knowing people on the back end of big business and knowing what's actually going on the back end of their lives. And to create something that's uniform, that's not necessarily going at the pace you should be going on, you're going at the pace that's right. And this is what people, listeners, you really need to hear this from these two people, because they're talking real. They're talking a want that has the pace that gives happiness. And that's a pace that people don't do in business very well. They don't focus on what's more important, which is the happiness in the heart and the connectedness and the resets that you have to do. We're focusing on the income, so then we're proving that we're a successful, in quotes, business. Would you agree?
Yeah, hugely. And one of my measures of success is the kids, and like the amount of time I get with them and growing them into amazing, world-changing dudes. And that requires time and energy and commitment and being there for them at different things. And that takes a priority at times over work. It means I'm knocking off at 2:00 to go pick up the kids from school, take them to soccer training and coach their teams so that I can shape them into awesome human beings.
I actually remember a conversation we've had with one of our coaches over the years. Obviously, we've had many different coaches, as lots of business people would have in their time, for different things. You, one of them, Jason, and you taught me how to love, and I'm forever grateful for that. And but one of them said to us, not you, but someone else said, I've never worked with anyone like you two before. And I said, oh, that's a really interesting statement. He goes, yeah, just, you're not moving as fast as normally people would. So like, it's just where your focus is just so different to what I'm used to working with. And for us, that really, it really struck me.
He was saying it's normally people just go in for the numbers.
Yeah.
And he said, most businesses just drive on, am I making more profit? What's the numbers? Throw everything at doing that. And he was pointing out that.
Yeah, that we will sit down for 6 out of 7 nights every week with our children together, the 4 of us, for dinner. And that's a really important tradition for us. And one of us will be available to them to pick them up from school in the afternoon, or drop them, or pick them up from the bus, or drop them to the bus, or whatever it is that's going there at any given time. And that's I never had that as a young person. You wouldn't have either. And so they're things that were really important to us. And so we really are using our business as a vehicle for us to do that. And we're about to go on a pretty exciting adventure, sailing with some friends through very rugged North Queensland waters to the top of Queensland. And our kids are 9 and 6. And it's like, I'm doing this for the first time and I'm 40. The experiences that we're able to offer them and take them along with us on is just, I don't know, it blows my mind to think, what are they going to be able to achieve with the exposure to life through us and through their own eyes? What is that going to mean for the world when they grow up with this wisdom that they're getting access to now?
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is really important to understand, is that you guys are like, I haven't spoken to you for ages, right? We haven't really had a conversation. The last sort of conversations that we've had were more on the table talking about stuff. And then I sort of met you, chatted briefly, and but we didn't really chat too much. And to hear your attitudes, you're creating a legacy for future generations. Your thinking is so, so important. And listeners, if you don't take this podcast seriously, I think you should. We're talking about two people with an attitude that is actually about heart-based legacy for happiness and a genuine care for helping their kids become good people. and beautiful people on this planet, and not focusing on the numbers, crunching the benefits and all of these sorts of things that a lot of the business coaches do. You're focusing on heart, love, reverence, care, respect, values that are the intangible qualities that we actually all want and desire. And you're focusing on in that way. And this is where I'm fully gracious to have the opportunity to experience time with the two of you, and the way that you think, the way that your attitudes are, and the way that business, in my opinion, should be run.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's great to chat with you too. And it doesn't feel like that long, Jason, since we've spoken, because I think we just have we have a heart connection with you. And that's why it's when Ed, you said, could you guys be on the podcast? And Ed said, okay. And I said, oh, look at Ed, not even knowing what it's about, Jason. We'll just say yes, because we trust you and love you so much. It's fine. But it really is, yes, we talk about money, and yes, it's definitely a driver for us when we're talking to the business people to market to them. And it's important that we market like that, and it's important that we showcase that you can have, but what we're doing is showcasing that you can have a community full of really great people, and you can qualify people in and out really easily when you know where you're going and what you want to do. And so for me, I'm unashamedly only surrounded by people who are going to help me get where I want to go in life. And if they don't positively contribute to that, then they have no place in my circle. And so I don't apologize for that. That's just how life is for me, and it always has been. And I think that doesn't mean I don't make time for others, but it means it's a once-off transaction for me, and then I'm out, because I don't want that vibe isn't moving on with me. But because of that, we're able to teach people how to surround themselves with other people like that, with abundant energy that can actually help them create their wealth. And so, yes, we talk about money because it's a measurement of how business is going. But through living what we do and probably showing up in the way that we do, I do hope that people feel inspired and feel skilled and able to do that for themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, is there any advice that you could give our listeners right now about maybe relationship business that, just off the top of your head, that you could give to your experiences that you've had in your journey of 10 years and 13 years in marriage? What advice would you give our listeners about how they could make things better for themselves?
I think it sounds like a whole nother podcast. I think the one that jumps off my mind is, I think we try and embody, we walk our talk all the time, and we try and embody that. And one of the lessons, pivot points that we keep coming up on and adapting with is that doing things before they make sense. And so an example of this is we're big about the social impact that we're going to leave on the world. We want to leave the world in a better place than what we arrived on it in. And each year we contribute part of our business profits to a cause. And we've done this for years. And I remember we didn't do it. We wanted to do it for so long, and we just didn't, because we were in survival. And we finally went, we've just got to do it. Even if it's $10 per member per month, we'll just start at that. And we'll just build it and build it and build it. And we did that. And we're still doing that every day. And it's that there's always a reason not to do something, but if you know in your heart it's the right thing, just make it happen and start earlier and do things. And
love that. What about you, Beck?
I keep just getting the word roles come up in my mind. And I feel that around that, the biggest willingness is to continually shift and adjust those and be able to wear many hats and take them off and put them on as needed. And in that also understand that as we grow as people, the needs of the reason that we got together, or the things that attracted us in one another, or the roles in which we played then, don't necessarily longer apply anymore. And so we have to be I think people have to be willing to look at that and assess, okay, you know, I don't need that from you anymore, but now I need this, or now I want this. So when we first got together, I was highly anxious. I was having several panic attacks a day. You know, like the first time I got up to speak in front of 4 women and I cried my eyes out. And now I'm like, speak to a room of 100 people, and that's my role. And I ask questions, and it's fine. I can do that through vulnerability, but just in power. And so I don't need Ed to be that person to hold me up anymore and to ground me and steady me anymore. I can do that for myself, but there's other ways in which I would like for him to show up for me. And so I think learning to articulate that for yourself, what is it that you would like support with, whether that's in business or whether that's in relationship, and having a willingness to sit and understand self through those lenses is really important, because unless you adapt and shift and uncover that next phase of yourself, there can't be a future relationship or a future business, because you're just going to be always stuck in the old patterns, not learning and growing.
I love that. Well, guys, I really want to thank you guys for jumping on Uncovered. I'll put all your details, so if people want to find you and find out what you do, I'll grab all your details, put it in the show notes. So for people who really like this podcast and you listen, I'd love it if you could like and review this and share this content. I think this is a really inspiring podcast for business owners who have an amazing attitude. I've really enjoyed getting the opportunity to revisit our connection again and spend time with you both. So thank you very much for jumping on Covered with me today.
Our pleasure. It's always good talking to you, Jason.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to our podcast. We really appreciate you, and we really appreciate your time, because time is so valuable. What we'd love you guys to do, if you like this podcast, if you could share it with your friends, and also our website address for the podcast is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. Our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademy.com. We have a free Facebook group called Wellness Leadership Evolution, so search for that. I'd love it if you could add me as a friend on Facebook. I don't buy it, so add me as a friend. And if you want some help and you would really like some support from us in the Academy, jump in. We have a process. You can do a break-in call to connect in with us. We do small courses. We have lots of things that we share. So we'd love the opportunity to give you a chance to change your life and turn it into a free one. You are one transformation away from change. Come and catch up.